Hey, St. John. Welcome to the Post Sermon Podcast. I am Deaconess Dahlia, and with me today, I have two guests. Or wait, am I calling you a guest?
Well, it's been a while since I've been on. Sure. So, sure.
Sorry, I realized. Yeah, so Pastor Adam is here, and then also Vicar Tim.
Sorry.
How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Great.
Good. So we are not having our normal post-sermon podcast episode. This is a special one. I guess this is one of our Around the Sermon episodes, right?
Yep.
And we have Vicar Tim on today to talk about this whole year of vicarage. He's almost finished. He's moving out on Tuesday. His last sermon and last Sunday at St. John is in a couple of days. We're recording on Friday. Nope, we're not. We're recording. I forgot what day we're recording on Saturday. So
yes.
So tomorrow, yeah, will be Sunday, your last one with us. So a lot of transition is about to happen with you.
Yeah, I can't believe it. It feels like I was just sitting in pastor's office recording the welcome episode, and that was almost a year ago now, and it's just all gone by so fast. It's hard to believe that this is my last Sunday.
Yeah, it still feels unreal, right? Like you're not actually moving on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild.
Right. So Pastor and I, we like to do this with our vicars each year and just reflect on this past year. So let's just start out with joys that you've had here at St. John.
Yeah, so just start with being at St. John. It's just been a joy to be here. Just how friendly and welcoming everybody was from the very first day I got here. It's just been incredible. I've really felt at home here, and I haven't always felt at home in church lately, just because with college, with seminary, I'm barely at my home church. I'm there like a few Sundays out of the year. Most of the time it's like during the summer when nothing's going on. So it's hard to feel really connected. And here I have just felt at home. It's just been a joy to get to take part in all of the daily life of the congregation, both Sunday mornings and throughout the week. And so I guess that's like the number one joy from this year has just been being a part of this congregation and getting to learn and grow here. And everybody's been so generous, so encouraging. And really, I don't think I could have done it without the encouragement and support of everyone in the congregation.
What were some challenges from the past year?
Probably the biggest one is how to just manage everything that goes on, just getting used to the cadences and the rhythms of church work. Just things like, there's all these things that just have to get done at some point. There's no hard and fast due date necessarily, but it just has to get done. Then, of course, the fact that Sunday is always coming. The sermon has to get written by Sunday.
So in a way, there is a hard and fast deadline.
Yes, certain things. Yes, there is. Yes. And those especially tough at times in like Advent and Lent. That was a very different from even just how the cadence was during other parts of the church year. But I'm glad that, I get to experience that challenge and difficulty now as a vicar, and not, not having that first experience be in my first year out on call of, whoa, Advent, Lent, there's a lot going on.
What do you say that you like to challenge the vicars with? What's that?
Yeah, I'm not looking to burn out the vicars, but one of the benefits of vicarage is you have these guys go through a full year of ministry. And yeah, no surprise, Advent and Lent, you mentioned, Vicar, are, busier times. And to see what that's like, and the idea that Sunday is always coming, and in those cases, Wednesday, and then Holy Week. And how do you navigate that? And so the only way to do this is just to experience it. And that's an opportunity we have with our vicarage program, is to give these guys the opportunity to kind of go through that, evaluate it, and check in with their other classmates back at SEM, and just how they navigated the year and get ready for full-time ministry, not too long from now.
Yeah, and there's also like a safety net for you here. Like you're only a vicar, so you get a year to kind of see what those ebbs and flows of ministry are like during the church year.
Yeah, that excuse runs out in just a couple days here. I'm just a vicar. You don't get to
You don't
say
get to
that.
use that anymore. Yeah. Well, good. Okay, so what is a favorite memory of yours?
I'd say there's two that stand out the most. First was Christmas Walk. That was just a really, really cool experience. Something I had never encountered before, and getting to be a part of it, leading groups through, I got to walk through it, 8, 9 times over the course of those 2 days. And it was just a really cool experience. And, got to know people better through that. Got to see all kinds of people who, may not come to church here, seeing them experiencing the Christmas story. And that was just really cool, really powerful. And the other great memory was going to the Best Practices Conference in Phoenix with the staff. That was a really cool experience. I hadn't even heard of Best Practices until like last year, and so now that I've gone, I'm like, wow, I want to go again. I want to go when I'm a pastor, because I learned a lot from that conference, and got to get close with fellow staff members, so that was fun as well.
Looking back on the year, you have journeyed through the church year with St. John. What was a favorite worship service?
Easter Vigil.
Tell us more.
Yeah, I've always wanted to experience the full Easter Vigil since I actually learned what Easter Vigil was a couple years ago. And my home church does, a short version of it that they just started doing that. But I'd always wanted to experience like the full 2.5 hour long Easter Vigil, and getting to be a part of that this year was just really cool. Even just how we did it, starting in the historic chapel. It's dark, the Good Friday paraments, the black, it's all up there. And then just processing into the main sanctuary, the lights come up, the organ swells, the whole church is decked out for Easter. That was just incredible.
Tell us about a takeaway from the year that will inform you in pastoral ministry.
Yeah, a big one is probably organization. I know I've always struggled with organization throughout my life, and I've really learned this year that being better organized, that just will help so much with ministry. Keeping track of all the things I have to do, just helping me be on top of things. That's something that I think I've grown in this year. I still have plenty of room to grow in it, but I certainly have a better idea of how to organize my time better, how to be better prepared for when I am in ministry, and it is on me to be on top of everything. So yeah.
I think it is kind of interesting. I don't know if people realize this about church work, or if I realize this about church work, like going into it, is like you think, oh, it's like only about spiritual things. So you're going to be, praying, or maybe administering sacraments, preparing sermons, like it's all revolving around the word. But in order to like do that well, there's so much of that, like you mentioned, organization, time management, a lot of skills that we have to work on that, a lot of other vocations require, right? Like you need to be on top of things in order to be able to bring the gifts of God to his people.
Yeah, and this is why the seminary relies on the vicarage year for that formation, because you can talk about it, you can theorize about it, but until you do, you're not going to learn these skills.
I would assume at the seminary there's a lot more focus on theology, right? Those are your classes, theology, learning biblical languages, not as much. It would just be vicarage year, right? Where you're learning those other skills.
Absolutely. And I think it's better, instead of just say like the vicarage is like an internship, even the language of apprenticeship, I think it's more to what vicarage is, and this actual kind of following and practicing and seeing how things go. Yeah, it's a really critical part of our seminary curriculum.
Let's talk about your upcoming year at the seminary. Tell us about some of the classes that you will take in your 4th and final year at the Sem.
Yeah, so one of the things about fourth year is that there's a lot of elective classes. So that'll be nice that I get to choose instead of it's all here's the seminary's mandated curriculum. I'm required to take Systematics 2, which is like looking into the church, office of the ministry, what do we teach about that. Then I also have to take a class on the Psalms and on the Gospel of John. But then for some more electives, I'm taking a preaching class on preaching in a postmodern context. So that'll be interesting.
Who's teaching that?
Dr. Nafsker.
Great. Yeah, we had him out last August, so some folks will remember him from their workshop.
Yeah.
Also, who's teaching your systematics class?
I believe I have Dr. Bierman for
Okay,
that.
and he has also been at St. John.
Yep. Yeah, I really appreciated that. It's like a church and ministry class with him. Yep.
Yeah, and then I have one more class with Bierman on ethics, and then finally the history of the LCMS. So that's what I have in the fall. At least I've not registered for spring classes yet, but I am very excited to take a class in biblical archaeology in the spring.
And so one of the things that's always interesting with vicarage, and when your vicarage is over with, is you are not a full year away from call day, or even likely from ordination. Call day is going to be sometime, is it April? Do you have the date, Vicar?
I could probably find it. I think it's just like the last Wednesday in April.
Yeah, you'll have your classmates that are pretty obsessed with counting down to the days and all that. So call day will be sometime next April. And there's a whole placement process you're going to go through. What's that process going to look like? What are you aware of?
What I'm aware of is that, I interview with the placement director at the seminary. He gets an idea of my preferences, where in the country I might want to go, what type of ministry I'm interested in doing. And then my understanding is that, after interview with the placement director, I'll then interview with individual churches that may be interested in calling me. And at least my understanding is that it'll likely at least be a surprise which of those churches will end up calling me on call day.
Yeah. And the placement process does ebb and flow just with who's the director at the time, kind of different trends in the synod. And sometimes it's a very involved, input-heavy process, or it is much more hands-off and more surprising on call day. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what your journey through that will be.
Yeah, I imagine if I was married and had kids, I'd probably have a better idea of where I was going on call day then.
That's not assured at all.
No? Okay. Well.
Yeah, no, by and large, call day still tends to be a surprise for folks. I think if you're going into a very particular situation, like, hey, you are going to be a missionary out of country, you do get some heads up. But even going through the process myself, I still didn't know officially where I was going until they actually said my name and where you're going to be.
Yeah, I remember a pastor I worked with, him and his family, like they had no idea. They actually thought it was going to be one other place, and it wasn't. Right.
And even though they might take all this input, it could still be very different. So you could say Midwest, but, Arkansas is just outside the Midwest, and maybe that's where you end up, or who knows, right? And it just sort of depends. And trusting that God's Spirit guides the whole process, and the Lord's going to place workers throughout His church.
What is a message of encouragement that you'd wish to share with the members of St. John?
Yeah, so I'd like to encourage everyone at St. John to continue being faithful. During my time here, it has clearly shown out to me that the people here are faithful believers in Christ who eagerly come to church, desire to hear the word, desire to receive the sacrament, and it's just been a blessing. And you've been so encouraging to me. Even the other people who visit here, I can just tell that this is a church that makes people feel welcome. And that's been incredible to see. And so my encouragement would be to continue to walk in your faith, continue to come to church, continue to do what you're doing, because there is good and faithful work being done here at St. John. And it has been a pleasure for me to have been a part of it, even just for 1 year.
one of the things that happens on Vicarage is you do stay in touch with your classmates. And I still have my Facebook group. I go back on Facebook like once every 6 months to check on this group. And it's just kind of sharing stories, what's going on in ministry. And it started back on our Vicarage, just how we're doing. Trusting that you've reached out to some of your classmates and you just kind of hear what's going on in their vicarages and in their congregations. What's something that stands out here as St. John has been a vicarage congregation, maybe compared to a different context?
Preaching. I've preached a lot more here than most vicars do. I had a conversation with my friend the other day, and he said that his final 3 sermons took place over the course of his last 3 months. He's preaching like once a month. That's it. I think I've preached almost 30 times here, and that's just been an incredible blessing to get to preach, to get to feel that I've grown more and more in my preaching, that I've learned so much about how to be a preacher, and even getting to experience things like preaching 3 weeks in a row. I mean, that's the reality of being in ministry, is preaching back to back to back to back and over and over and over again, and getting to experience some of that was just really beneficial. And so I probably preached more than most of my classmates that I'm aware of. Maybe there's a couple guys who are like basically running a church plant or something like that who are preaching more, but most of my friends that I've talked to are preaching a lot less than I have.
Yeah, and I just think that's it's definitely one of those skills that you only learn by doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's quite important for a vicarage congregation to have their guys preach regularly and to be involved in that feedback process and all that. And just a reminder to the congregation, please sign up for feedback groups. Those are so important. You are an arm of the seminary in this process, and we get to shape our future preachers in the church. That's a pretty cool thing.
Well, I think, the whole congregation, we just appreciate your time and all of your hard work this past year. And I think something cool that we started doing in our prayers is we are now praying for the seminarians from St. John, and now your name will go on that list as well. And so we will definitely be remembering you and praying for you, and definitely want to just keep in touch and see where God does place you at the end of next year.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it. I felt overwhelmed at times by all the support and prayers from people here at St. John, and I'll be blessed to know that people are still thinking about me, still praying about me.
Awesome. Well, we'll keep an eye out for call day and keep you in our prayers, Vicar. And I don't know. This is it's Saturday, so you still gotta get your final sermon set for tomorrow. So
Yep.
We should probably leave you to do that. And we'll say goodbye tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this wraps up the episode for today. Thank you, Vicar, for joining us and for feeding us the word this past year.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, take care, you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.